perspective, in particular in the oncology space, we know that it's an awful hot area for partnering. But if you could give us a thought on that.
No, happy to. So, we kind of have, we're a big company, so we get to have these sort of big scans of sort of the environment. Three sort of trends we kind of look at, the sort of access to capital of the biotech community, sort of in the form of obviously IPOs and sort of venture funding. The other area we look at is, of course, exits, so things like M&As, and looking at the sort of trends around M&As. And then we obviously look at our competitors, what kind of deal structure that we put together, thinking about sort of how do we remain, sort of what we're willing to do in terms of bringing a deal in-house. So we kind of have that monitored, and I would say in those three areas, I think in terms of access to capital, it's obviously a good time to be at a biotech if you have a good, sort of good idea, good founders, and venture money is definitely pouring in. I think the IPO market, although it's been challenged, recently people are still obviously lining up at the door, and I think some good ones have done well. Last year, I probably think the numbers were about half of them were probably successful IPOs in the sense of value creation, like the Sparks, but many of them ended up being sort of not at the point where they were pricing their IPOs, but many people are still continuing to do that. And the M&A market, I think, is very, very strong. I think if you look at any of the pharma pipelines, all of them are continuing to look at how they can think about investing in early pipeline, or looking at for sales gap fillers within their promised growth for Wall Street. And I don't think that's actually going to probably be different in this year. I mean, I think you're going to continue to see that for the foreseeable future in terms of the amount of venture money and the amount of IPOs and probably the exits by M&A. And cancer immunotherapy in particular, it's obviously, I see a number of companies that either are cancer immunotherapy companies or have repositioned themselves as cancer immunotherapies. We actually had done this small study where in the Bay Area alone, there were 450 cancer immunotherapy biotechs. So that was an interesting thing that my team has to go through, and probably, we look at all of them, believe it or not. We have a team that's, being the market leader in oncology, we have the capabilities to do that, and we look through every single one of these. And it's actually, I actually still enjoy that very much, an opportunity to meet with biotech companies, and I think it's continuing to be an area of growth for many companies, and I think that will continue as the unmet medical need for patients continues to still be very striking in oncology, despite all the advances.
So maybe we should get to probably one of the key topics that many of you have come here to talk with us about. But I'd like to pose a question to more than one of you at this point in time. What do you feel is the best way to contact a company in this space? And maybe we'll follow up with that. What do you think is the least productive way to do that? So, Thomas, you're smirking over there, so maybe we'll have you kick that off.
Well, I think I start with the least effective one, and that is, of course, to contact our chairman. That's absolutely the worst thing. Jan Ando is not only a very good friend, he's also a very smart guy, and he will obviously take a look at the opportunity himself, and that puts us in a very bad position for a future relationship, I'm telling you. So the best way is to contact me. We have a fantastic website. We're very transparent. You can contact anyone on the Scouts, full details, Skype us, phone us, email, text, you name it. But take a look and do your homework. Prepare for it. Don't tell me how large the diabetes market is. That's not a good idea. If the first 5 slides that you send to me tells me how much insulin we are selling, that's not a good idea. You can pitch the VCs with that, but not me. Focus on how you differentiate. What can you help us with? Take a look at our pipeline. Phone us. Get advice from us before you pitch us. That's what I'm there to help you. I'm your advocate. contact me and ask me, what are you looking for? How should I pitch you? How can I make a good impression on you? And you only get those 30 minutes or 20 to 30 minutes. You have to make a very good impression. That's it. Either it's by good science or by good personality. I'm flattered by both. So and I think building relationships it's all about us. It's us people that are doing this. You should never forget that personal touch. It doesn't matter how good the chemistry is, if it doesn't work on a personal level, it's difficult to be married for, we're talking 10, 12, 15 years. So we better match that as well. Early on, the earlier the better, I think. Take a look at our website, novonordisk.com/partnering. All the details are there, what we look for and how to contact us. Thank you.
So I'm going to be a little provocative here, but what if somebody would talk with you and you'd say, I don't think this is a good fit for Novo. Is it worth maybe contacting somebody else in the organization, or does no really mean no for an organizational standpoint? How do some of these folks know if that's the case?
If I have any doubt, I always discuss with my colleagues. And I let you know when I do so. I let you know whom I'm talking to. If I have any doubt that there is maybe it's outside my area of knowledge, which is very likely, by the way. But we are very transparent in why we decline, how we decline, and that's part of it. And we also tell you what to bring us next time you come. That's also very important. And we help you to progress. That's what we are here for.
Leslie, I'm going to ask you the same question earlier, in particular because a lot of us, myself included, look at J&J and being such an organization with so many different, even business development functions. How would someone know which one of those is the best thing to do, or are you talking from one organization to the other?
Right.
Which I think I freely admit that can be a problem in some instances with talking across large organizations. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, J&J is a massive organization, and we have so many different operating companies and so many different things going on at any given time. So that was actually why the innovation centers were put in place. And so the innovation centers, as I said, they're in Shanghai, London, Boston, San Francisco. And the idea is that London is for Europe, Shanghai is for Asia Pac, including Australia. And then, although oddly enough, New Zealand is now, Australia and New Zealand are now for California. Either way, it'll get to us. But, and then in the United States, San Francisco is west of the Mississippi, if your company is west of the Mississippi. If you're in St. Louis, you can go either way. And then Boston is for east of the Mississippi. And so the idea is in each of these innovation centers, we have a representative from each of our therapeutic areas. We also have a consumer rep, we have medical device reps. And on our website, jnjinnovation.com, we have our list of what we're interested in. Now for Janssen Pharma, which is our pharmaceuticals business, it's a bit more straightforward, right? We have the therapeutic areas listed, we have disease areas that are listed. We really do focus on those areas. So for example, in oncology, we have lung, prostate, hematologic, colorectal. If you bring me a breast cancer opportunity, I will say, that's fabulous. We're not going to look at it because it's not what we do. If it comes into, if you're west of the Mississippi and if you come into our innovation center, if you send something to me or something to someone else, I hand it to my colleague, I tell you who I've handed it to, and then they get it to the right person. And so the whole idea about the innovation centers was, here are some people, they will be connected, they will know where to send it, and we'll hopefully have that transparency so that you will understand where it's gone and whether it's of interest and what the next steps are. And we have now, finally, because we also have, so our Janssen Business Development Group, those are the folks They're mostly located in New Jersey and Pennsylvania. They've been your traditional, often the traditional business development folks that have been in Janssen for a long time. And they mostly focus on deals that are phase 2 and later. So they collaborate very closely with our commercial group. And those folks and us and all of us are now on the same database. So for example, someone can send me a presentation, and I can look it up on our database, and I can say, oh, it was looked at, this company was looked at a year ago by someone in this group, and I can give feedback to the company, and I say, this was looked at a year ago, we do have some notes, it's probably a good time for a refresher and an update, and here's what I would suggest you do, and here's who you want to have contact with. And that way we don't do a lot of crosstalk. But the database is really important for us at this point, because people do come in from so many different angles, and we do still get people coming in. They give me something, they give someone else something, they call one of our scientists, and you know what, it's okay, but usually we do write it down in the database, and we do have a reason for either looking at it or not looking at it, and the hope is that we will give you the feedback and the transparency, as Thomas said, to help you understand sort of what we would need to see more of if we were going to continue to talk about it. So we really have tried very hard over the last 2 years to make it easier for people to get to the right people within J&J, because we really did recognize that was a problem.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, I think you bring up a good point for companies like all of ours that have multiple sites, either within the U.S. or around the globe, that are looking for innovation. At least from my perspective, I think we've gotten a lot better through the help of a lot of technology, databases, etc., that allow us to communicate a lot more effectively within our organizations. I think we all can think of pretty close to horror stories in the past where you go to talk with a company and is that, well, we just talked with your other colleagues just a few,
Well, and I will say, we still actually do that. We actually have some groups that are talking to, we have a couple of companies, even this week, that are talking to different groups within our organization, but that's because they do have different programs.
Right.
I mean, one of the things, you were asking for trends, and one of the things that we're seeing is that immunology is now stretching across all kinds of things, right? And so you can have an immunology product that is really interesting for neuroscience, or oncology, for immunology, or autoimmune disease. Yeah. So there's a whole lot of crosstalk going on right now. Yeah. It's very interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was just our immunology group that tries to convince everybody about everything.
No, it's not just yours.
And what I would just add to that is, it sounds like we all operate in very similar ways. I mean, if you don't know any of us at the company, we all know how to use LinkedIn. You can figure out the format of our email. For us as well, we have forms on the website. For us, I would say,
doesn't work.
For Bayer, it does. We know each other. If it comes to me, it actually should go to one of my early licensing colleagues or someone else. I'll forward it along. We try to be transparent on it. For example, one thing we have here is a collaborator. What we do, we have about 5 companies or so in the space here. We provide them with space, we provide them with incubator, thermocycler shakers, etc. And we hope that it breeds and fosters like a good relationship. We have a few relationships with about 3 of those companies. We publish with them. And so that's kind of the way to get things started. It might not be a formal conference, it might be a forum, it might just be a call into Bayer asking for BD&L. I mean, we are here to help, and we try to be kind of a partner of choice and help people as much as we can, which I think there are a lot of similarities, maybe some differences for J&J or others, but for us at least, we try to be as helpful as we can be.
So Mark, I've got to follow on that. So you make a connection to someone within your organization, you've got that initial engagement. What happens then? What's your process? And I'm going to ask more than one of you, so just see if we have a little bit different flavors of the process, but it's always one of those questions that I think we're asked an awful lot, and at least from my perspective, the one thing that I would say, because I have to get it in, is that no process is identical from one engagement to another. I think there's some checkpoints that we hopefully go across with each thing, but let's start with you, Mark.
I mean, we're a German company, so I can tell you we definitely have a process. But what I can say is that, again, it really is pretty uniform, and there may be some differences in the beginning, but people send things into us. We may have an initial call, we will review it, and we may come back with some initial questions, and from there we start a dialogue. Now, it depends on where you are in the spectrum. I mentioned this collaborator space that we have. So there really needs to be a good match. We want to build a relationship with a person. So if someone was essentially saying, I just want money, leave me alone, it wouldn't go for that collaborator space. Obviously, it'd be more of a traditional licensing type thing. So eventually we kind of build a relationship from there, have a few talks. We'll obviously do some face-to-faces. And you know, it may work out in terms of let's go ahead, let's start talking about how we can partner, how we can work together, maybe some internal processes, or it might be right now isn't the right time, but we're still interested, let's revisit in a year. And similar to everyone else, we do have a database where we keep track of everything. So I'd say we try to be, again, very open, very candid, and just see how we can work together and do initial evaluation on our side and talk to you to get more.
So I would just probably add on that it's probably good to understand the decision-making process and decision-maker on both sides. It's probably one of the sticky things that happens during a negotiation is you know, the deal team or the negotiators think certain people are empowered on both sides, and that doesn't necessarily translate into a deal being done. So really trying to understand how the governance works, if it's complicated or if it's simplified or whatever, just as long as from a biotech perspective you have a good view of, okay, so what's your overall process? You know, what kind of information do you need at these different sort of checkpoints? And then, you know, who's actually the decision maker? Is it, you know, is it the head of oncology, or is someone higher? Or is it someone higher than that? Who's actually making the decision? You know, and on both sides, I think what's frustrating from a pharma perspective is sometimes we have those interactions, and then it's not even the CEO that makes that decision. It's actually the chairman that we've never interacted with, and has been in the shadows making all the decisions without us actually being able to have a conversation with that person. So I think it's probably a good point for biotechs and pharmas to kind of have a good collaborative discussion during these negotiations, because I think at points you just want to make sure none of those kind of bridges are burned, or the way those type of interactions are kind of leaving, even if you don't consummate into a deal. So it's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, because we will always explain what the approval process is, because it is relatively complicated for us. I mean, it's complicated for me. But you know, we have different levels of approval depending upon the size of the deal. And the other thing that is really good to understand, I don't know whether other pharmas are like this, but J&J, I'm not allowed to give you a term sheet until I have an approval for the approximate budget. So in fact, if you ask me to give you a term sheet before I've had a chance to do diligence, they're not going to like it. They're going to say, I can't, if we haven't done any diligence at all, I can't say that this is a good idea for a program. The only time that we might potentially jump into a process is if it is something that we are so excited about and it's an auction. And, you know, it's a big deal. That's that a lot of, you know, sort of the hottest thing since sliced bread, right? So I think it's important to understand that if you want a piece of paper that is an actual term sheet, I have to jump through a lot of hoops to be able to hand you that paper. Doesn't mean I can't talk to you about structure of a deal, potential numbers. I'll be doing all of that so that I can then take all of that back to my senior management. And for me it's the head of Janssen, actually, Pharmaceuticals, who, if it's over a $10 million deal, the head of Janssen Pharmaceuticals has to say this. So, you know, so that's how high I have to go. So I think that's something that is important. It's really important to talk to anybody across the table for you to understand what is the approval process and what do we have to do to get buy-in from the company.
Yeah, I think what Leslie brings up is a very good point. You know, not often, but there are occasions where we'll be engaged with an organization and you hear, well, we're not going to let you into diligence. We're not going to go deep into confidential information until we have a non-binding term sheet. We've had extremes where we want a non-binding term sheet on non-confidential information, and I wouldn't say it's impossible for us to do those things, but the quality of the term sheet and the range of the term sheet, I would hope you understand, is awfully broad if you paint us into that situation. And like Leslie pointed out with Janssen, it had to be the same way. We can't release non-binding term sheets, certainly over a certain threshold, without going to the very, very senior people.
Well, I can certainly echo that. And non-binding term sheets is very rarely provided from us as well. So, and I also echo the governance structure. We're very transparent in how, depending on the deal and if it's a device aspect or a therapy aspect, we have slightly different governance boards and approval boards and processes, but we're very transparent about that. And it's even displayed in a couple of examples at our website just to illustrate the way we operate. A couple of things though. CDAs, a simple CDA is actually a very important document for us. We're a focused company in diabetes, and we would never like to either pollute your IP or be contaminated ourselves. So we have very restricted field definition of what we consider you can disclose under a CDA to us. And then we expand that as we get more and more interested in understanding the asset or the technology or whatever it is that you're presenting. That's one thing. Another thing is MTA. Simple, again, might look like, but we need to reproduce your data. In 85% of the cases, I cannot reproduce third-party data in diabetes. It's the worst of all. It's really bad. 60%, I think, is the general figure that we talk about. In diabetes. It's even worse, and it's not so strange. It's all about handling the animals, and the animal caretaker changes a lot at university sites or small biotechs, and and reach out to us, ask us about what CRO can I use that you like. We do that a lot. We have a lot of, not a short list, I would say a short list of what we call pre-approved CROs that we recommend to do studies. Some of the diabetes studies that is done is very, very complex. So the MTA and the work plan that we collaborate with is a very important document for us as well. Understanding your needs is, besides what my colleagues already have so well put, understanding your needs on the deal structure and value expectations that you have up front is key. Otherwise, I don't know who to really go to at the company.
I mean, one of the things that I've seen is that with this need for the big companies, because as the larger companies like J&J and probably Abbott and Roche, as we tend to do a little bit less of our own internal R&D and look to the outside for innovation, we've had to change some of our expectations for partnering, right? So we actually we do a number of deals, of these early stage deals where people have new targets that they're interrogating, they have interesting new small molecules that they're working on, where we look at it and we say, wow, this is pretty cool, but we have a couple of questions. So we've been doing a fair number of deals where we say, we'd like to see the following experiments run because we think this is very interesting. And if these pan out, we're totally on top of doing the deal, right? And we will fund those experiments, and you get to keep all the data, and if we decide to do a deal, then we get the data. Then we get to get that license. But otherwise, we're just trying to find an answer and find out whether you've got what we think you have. And so we've had to change our model of being open to not getting anything for our money other than the right to negotiate.
Yeah, and we had a brief call, it was last week, I guess, to talk about that. And kind of brainstorming about different topics and sharing notes, if you will. And I would say that that's one of the things that all of our companies, I think, are really getting more on board with the idea of utilizing, leveraging our resources to help companies answer some of the questions and help us answer those questions too. Is there value there? There's an increasing openness to be able to do that without having a lot of strings attached on things. So, I think, and Thomas and others here alluded to it as well, is that dialogue, that interaction. We're very anxious to do those kinds of things because we think it's mutually beneficial as far as helping things out and understanding where we see the potential information that we can bring forward. And a lot of it is bringing it forward to our management. We are, in our business development realm, in many cases, the agents for getting things to bring them in. And we all like to do deals, so that's a big part of it. So.
Well, and I think it's also important for the small companies to understand that when we're doing this, we're not trying to get competitive information. We're really not. Okay. Some people, I remember when I was a paranoid little small company early in my existence, I thought, oh, they're just doing this because they're just doing the CDA because they want to get competitive information. They want to see what's going on in my company. It's really not true. I mean, it rarely happens. We're usually talking to you because we really are truly interested in what you're doing. So I think that's an important thing to remember is that we're doing this because we really want to know, and it's not because we have something else going on internally that we're trying to make sure that we do better.
Right, and we obviously look at all of you. I mean, there's 500 or so people at this conference, for example, times however many projects. Is more innovation than any one single company can do. So we literally, that's why we're out here speaking with all of you. And to answer the question as well on structure, I think we're all fairly flexible. I would just say for Bayer, one of the things we try to emphasize is more on the partnering aspect. And we've been able to show people, as opposed to taking maybe a larger upfront, if you NPV, more sharing on the back end in terms of royalty or something like that. More partner with us. We both believe in this. Let's work together. They end up doing better from an MVP perspective as opposed to that. So we do try and again work with companies and really be more candid and open with everyone.
Probably from an oncology perspective, the one thing you see in deal structure is probably the desire for many of the oncology companies, no matter if they're two people, to have U.S. commercial rights and the right to develop a molecule all the way to the market, which I think is a bit challenging for many companies that have built up large infrastructures and have large commercial presences globally. And it's usually why you want to partner with us. So I continue to see that, and of course, when it makes sense, I think it can work. But I think every company asking for it, no matter how large the size of the company or whether it's feasible or not, is probably something that I think we all tackle, whether we decide to take that as a term or find a way, a solution around that. But probably there's been a lot more companies have been more aggressive about, early stage companies aggressive about U.S. commercial and development rights.
I can certainly resonate very well with that. And another thing on the same topic here is, of course, split indications. What we see, particularly in diabetes, is that there are often type of diseases like the CHI and others, and many of the companies that come to us want to remain rights for the orphan diseases, and that's not going to work very well.
No.
So we can give, we need control. That's number one, control. So that type of deal is actually an exception for, but and that goes with geography in diabetes, obesity, and complications as well. We're not very willing to give up any area. I think that is, we cover
global deals.
Global,
Yeah.
no regional.
Yeah. Should we ask some questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
So pharma partnering has come a long way in recent years, recent decades, and we've made this quantum shift from clinical stage assets to now preclinical assets with significant collaborations. Can you comment on the issues that you consider as a senior partner in considering a partnership with a junior partner where it's going to involve 10 million or tens of millions of dollars going forward, particularly focusing on the non-scientific issues? for example, the depth and breadth of the management team or the caliber or composition of the investor group?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So obviously, so we do a lot of different deals with a lot of different teams. I think that we always try to take advantage of where the capabilities are. So if our partner has the early stage capabilities and we don't, has the models, has all of that kind of stuff, then that's what they do. And we fill in where we can. Sometimes actually we don't have the human resources to actually do it, but we want to get involved. And so as long as we have confidence in and the data that's been brought to the table is good, then the junior partner gets to do that. But we do have a hard time, giving up commercialization rights. That has to go all the way up to our chairman, actually, to do that. So I don't know if that helps at all, but.
So we hear all about the trends going to earlier stage, and in any given event, when you go talk to someone, it's come back when you have clinical data, come back when you have more data. It's too early. So can you reconcile that for me, please?
Sort of like an answer you'll get from a lawyer is, well, it depends. Yeah. Right? I mean, so it really does. I mean, it depends on the program. There are some programs that we know a lot about, and so if we know a lot about it and you think yours is distinguished from something else that's going on, we might say, we don't believe it until we see it, right? If it's something that we don't know very much about, then we're much more willing to jump in early if we're excited about it. But if we already know a whole lot about it, we're probably gonna want to see clinical data first, because that's the background that we have. We might have had a couple of programs fail already. So
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you again for attending and